everyone. Welcome to Fangirls Over 40. Remember, we're not old, we're vintage. So...
You're not even old.
Well, now, everybody, this is our guest, and I'm going to say, I'll say the American way now, Miltos.
Yerolemou.
Miltos. And this lovely gentleman played our favorite Swordmaster, Cyril Farrell, in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Did we all enjoy that show?
Of course.
Yes, we did. Did we all like how it ended?
I have less qualms about what happened, as in Jon Snow killing Dany, Bran becoming the king.
Bran the Broken, yeah.
Because he has the most interesting story.
Yeah. Who should have been the king or the queen? Who should have ended up?
I don't know. I mean, I think Bran makes sense. I don't think it was ever going to be a thing. You know, like we always used to say that everyone is obsessed with who would end up on the throne.
Correct.
But we all knew that it's like Jaws. It's a film with a shark in it, but it's a film that isn't about a shark. It's about a community. Of course it is, but it is.
It is.
Yes.
It's not about a shark. It's about other things, and that's why it's a good film, because the relationships between Brody and the old sea dog and the young upstart.
Well, I have to jump in here because I
the
grew up on Lake
bottom.
Michigan, and I'm sorry, but screw you. That movie was about a shark, and
It wouldn't still be an incredible movie if it was just because you don't feel the same way about Sharknado, do you?
What a piece of shit.
Well, exactly. So that's my point.
No, exactly.
It's not about a
It's
shark.
about good stories.
And
it is.
Game of Thrones was not about a throne.
No, it was
never
not.
about the throne.
It wasn't. Okay, now I've got to go.
They all thought it was, even the characters, but we all knew from the outside that no one was going to.
Now
be.
I have to put a little Easter egg here. You are not the only Game of Thrones cast member I have ever met.
Well, then I'm stopping this interview right.
My husband and I met Mark Addy at
lovely guy.
Legoland at Windsor.
Randomly.
This was a random thing because my husband has this amazing ability. Like the FBI would love him. He knows people's faces from anywhere. He could have seen you in one of your old movies or anything, and he's like, "I know who that is." I'll be like, "Who is that?"
Yeah.
But we were there, and he looks over. He goes, That's King Baratheon over there. I said, shut up. It's not. He goes, it is. And I looked over and I went, it is. So the next thing that happens is I hear this, oh, Dad, help me. And he gets up. My daughter has beaten up his son with the pretend swords and shields that they give them. So what do? Sean walks over to him and goes, hey, Mark, how's it going? Remember me? I was an extra on Game of Thrones. And honestly, Mark was trying to look like he knew who my husband was and couldn't place him. And I walked up and I relieved him. I said, my husband's just pulling your leg. He's never been on Game of Thrones. I said, but we do know also William Mulhall, who was on Game of Thrones with the dogs.
Oh, right. Yes.
So Will is a buddy of ours.
Yes,
so
yes,
I
I
do
remember meeting
know
him,
some of you guys in the roundabout way. But let's get back to you, because the most interesting thing I would really love to ask is, I see in your background the Shakespeare Company. Tell us a little bit about acting in the Shakespeare Company.
When I was a kid, I think the first play I ever saw, I was taken at the age of about 14, 15, maybe 14 years old, to the Royal Shakespeare Company on Stratford-upon-Avon. I grew up in Eastbourne, which is quite a long distance, quite a schlep. But we went on in the days when our education system had enough money to send us on trips.
Yeah, we had
which
that too.
then doesn't happen that much anymore. We went to see Jeremy Irons playing Leontes.
Wow. Oh my God.
In Winter's Tale. I also and we also saw, I think we saw two shows. We saw Winter's Tale, and I remember sitting in the front row and watching him cry when he's told of his son's death. And I remember it being so affecting. It literally blew my mind. I'd never seen anything like it.
And Jeremy Irons.
We didn't have television. My parents were very poor. So
Wow.
this was like huge, right? I didn't know who Jeremy Irons was, but it was like, I can't believe he's crying. He's literally crying.
Wow.
Now, I remember that so vividly to this day. I also remember watching a workshop about Midsummer Night's Dream, and Titania was played by Janet
Nagatir, yes, I know.
incredible actress. And other brilliant. Pete Postlethwaite was playing Bottom. Really fantastic. So left a huge impression on me. So when I became an actor completely by accident, I didn't mean to. I honestly didn't mean to. I was just so rubbish at school. I got no qualifications.
I
All
can
I
feel
literally could do is learn lines. That's literally the limit of my my educational abilities. In fact, not even learning lines. I was really physical. I was always into my body. I was really good at dancing and moving. I was like a little acrobat. I would bounce off the walls, and I ended up becoming an acrobat. I used to do all sorts of circus acts.
Things you did not know.
And also worked as a dancer for the English National Opera.
Oh, wow.
All these things were complete. I was a fraud. I'd never had any dance training. I'd never had any circus training. I just faked it till I made it.
Isn't that the best way to do it?
And I pulled the wool over people's eyes, thinking at one point I was working with ballet dancers, thinking to myself,
I can do that.
no, I didn't. I thought at some point someone is going to tap me on the shoulder and tell me to leave because I'm not supposed to be here.
my God, that's
But because I
hilarious.
was so determined, and actually I was quite good physically, I was good at learning choreography, even though I'd never had a dance class. I just worked my butt off, and they kept employing me for a number of years, and I learnt a lot doing that.
That is brilliant.
When it came to working at the Royal Shakespeare Company the first time, I had to audition because they were doing, for the very first time, a family show at Christmas. This is back in the early 90s. And they did a production of The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe.
Oh, my God, yeah.
And I was in the very first production of that. I played Mr. Reepicheep, who doesn't appear in Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, but Adrian Noble, the director, took a look at me and thought, oh, you'd make a really cute mouse. And we'll just have Reepicheep in this. No one will really know. He doesn't have any lines, so he'll just... And I understudied Mr. Tumnus. So two things happened. I also had to do Winter's Tale. So I was given a part where I had to do this huge monologue in the second half. And I had a terrible time. So it was a really terrible baptism of fire. First of all, I felt completely out of my depth. I could do Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe, but Winter's Tale, even though I loved Shakespeare, it was all so new to me, and I had a huge crisis of confidence, and I really didn't have a very good time, although I did really get stuck in, and I worked really hard, but I just felt like I did at school. I felt like I didn't belong there.
Oh.
However, I loved it in a weird sadistic way. I loved it. It's like I just wish I belonged there. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like when I worked in opera, I wasn't a singer, so I was never going to really have a career in opera as a dancer because the dancers are the people in the background. But I wanted to work in opera, and I thought, I just wished I was a dancer. And then I worked at the Royal Shakespeare Company and just thought, I wish I actually could do Shakespeare. So all of these things were like, I was still carrying that kind of post-traumatic stress disorder from school.
We can relate.
But as
deeply.
I kind of infiltrated subversively the company, I worked with incredible people. I worked with Sis Berry. I worked with John Barton. I worked with the greats, and I really learnt a lot of stuff. And so when I came back, I had more confidence, and eventually over the years I ended up playing Feste in Twelfth Night with Richard Wilson.
Hi, Comic Connors. Can anybody that is booked into the kids sword fighting workshop at 12 p.m. please make their way to the ground floor? That's anybody that's pre-booked for the sword fighting workshop at 12 p.m. Please make your way to the ground floor. Anybody not here by 12 p.m. may forfeit their place. Thank you.
And they aren't kidding. They really mean that. It's either,
It's sold out.
Yeah. So we'll talk to you maybe a little later.
Just to finish that, I grew to love it. I grew to become like, if I really do theatre nowadays, it has to be Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I'll not really do anything else unless it's something that really, really appeals to me.
Absolutely.
And I ended up really enjoying my time there. But there was a couple of things that just happened that crushed my confidence. One of them was The reason why I didn't really get on at school is because I remember very early on, I think I must have been about 6 or 7, we in primary school used to be pointed at first thing in the morning.
Oh, I hate that.
And go, stand up, do your 7 times tables. And I was terrible. And I remember the humiliation of not being able to do even 2 times 7. Literally 1 times 7. You know when you get that kind of blindness? Like you just become frozen, and it doesn't matter whether you know it or not. Yeah. You literally at that moment know nothing.
Yes.
Right?
I stand here and I know nothing.
Yeah.
Exactly. And
so that was what lingered, and that also happened. Like it almost triggered it again, because I remember we had to learn sonnets.
Oh, geez, yes.
And we all had a
I've
sonnet.
done that. Oh.
And the director said at some point, I'll just see you can recite it. To him, it was like
nothing.
It was us sharing something, right? But to me, I thought that I was at school again. And it did that thing to me again, where even though I'd learnt it, I couldn't remember it.
How did you overcome it then?
I didn't overcome it.
We're all broken.
You have to accept that sometimes you are a complete failure.
And
that's
love
okay.
it.
Yes.
And love it.
And the only way is that you have to remember that it doesn't matter how many times you fail, because you will always, and that is what gave me confidence in the end. Is I had to overcome it by just going, it doesn't matter, because the reason why it hurts is that you think it matters too much.
No, and you take that, and it takes you forward in life, and you get to where you need to go and want to go. And right now, you are going to get to go and teach some little kids how to be like Arya Stark. Miltos. Thank you very much. Hopefully, we can talk to you later on today.
Yeah, let's do it.